thanks to the coordinators and to the organizers for this opportunity. And thanks also to the Novelog, Success, U-Turn, and City Lab coordinators for the inputs they sent to me in the last weeks. Of course, I'm also partner in two of the four projects, in Novelog and in Success, with some important responsibilities. So why these joint recommendations? Thanks to the four projects, but also to our experience, we identified some critical issues which are very important and very specific in some cases, and that are not allowing public administrations to take decisions, or maybe the right decisions. In other cases, they are suffering some new trends which are invading our cities and without information. It is the case of e-commerce, for example. It's a trend in which is stressing our road networks, transport networks, and also the efficiency of the transport operators. The second point is related to the number of actors in logistics, which is very high. So it makes very complex the dialogue between the public administrations, the private stakeholders, the transport operators, and citizens. Also, from the presentations of today and from the last panel, there is a lack of data. Cities do not have enough data, and in some cases they have few data which they are not able to use for planning in freight. There is also the need to cooperate, to share ideas, to meet, and this is a common need for almost all the cities which has not a freight quality partnership active in their territory. Urban freight transport is not sufficiently integrated in urban planning, so it is important because it's the preliminary phase to make rules, to share ideas, and to make measures. In some cases, this is a provocatory statement, but cities thinks that in most cases the market will adapt their market to the rules. The final point is the imbalance between inbound and outbound flows. It is not for all the supply chain, of course, but in some cases it happens that outbound flows are empty because cities are the final destination of freight. So based on these priorities, I tried to identify the 6 categories, which are strategies, data collection, stakeholders, logistics space, incentives, and innovation. Starting from the first one, I think it's very important to read also the title, Include the Logistics in Planning. So it's important to specify that sustainable urban logistic plans and the development of these plans must be also promoted by the European Commission, as it was done for the sustainable urban mobility plans. It is quite important because logistics planning must be faced like as a sustainable urban mobility plan with a multidisciplinary and multi-stakeholder approach. The second point is that today 75% of people is living in cities. By the United Nations study, by 2030, we have 80% of people living in the cities. So it will be very important to think also at the metropolitan level, not only at historical city center, which is the most natural city logistics environment. From the sessions, it happens also from the last panel, it is quite important that Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan and Sustainable Urban Logistics Plan share activities and roles, but not the stakeholders. Stakeholders are quite different, are completely different. And moreover, the mobility plan cannibalize the logistics plan in terms of resource, time, money, attention, and promotion. So consider to work into the two plans in two different stages. The second priority is the data collection. We heard in the previous sessions that all our projects are data-driven. Data is needed in order to assess the logistics activities in the cities, to understand the trends, to compare different urban areas. We need tools to observe urban freight transport dynamics and to observe and also to enforce the logistics. The third point is dedicated to the stakeholder. Stakeholders are very important, as we heard in the previous session, to validate the results. It's very important to establish a private collaboration format which can go also beyond the planning or the project. It's important to have a permanent partnership, like as Freight Quality Partnership has. These partnerships can co-create together and contribute to the definition of rules and measures by institutionalizing the stakeholder platform. It also makes easier the development of policies which stimulate the optimization of supply chain without imposing reorganizations of the supply chain itself. So specific meetings can be also made facing specific problems, specific topics, and with specific stakeholders. For example, construction, logistics, port, food, etc. It is in general a big tool which goes beyond the mere involvement of people. In public transport, there are passengers which can evaluate the level of service of the transport public services. In freight, this is not possible, and it could be one of the range of action of the Freight Quality Partnership. Logistics space is very important for the 4 projects due to the trends, maybe e-commerce, and also to the rules. So cities have to be carbon-free by 2030. Our cities will be, hopefully, plenty of clean vehicles, in particular electric vehicles, cargo bikes. These vehicles have a shorter range than conventional ones and require reloading of shipments closer to the final receivement of goods. City logistics of future will focus more on consolidation and micro consolidations, like also locker system and so on, and they will be widely adopted. Development of legal and regulatory framework allowing the easy installation and the operation of private logistics infrastructures in public space is needed in order to guarantee the interoperability also of these systems. The other point is related to money, of course. We have to think in a different way as in the past. A lot of experiences are successful and generate added value for the whole supply chain, but for one successful experience, there are more than 10 negative experiences. So incentives must be focused on the critical priorities of the territory and to promote the investments already done. It is fundamental to define and fund emblematic initiatives in cities in order to have a holistic approach at local level for sustainable urban logistic planning. Innovation, as Ian Wainwright said yesterday, technology is not the solution to everything, but it's a tool. It's a tool, it's an opportunity which cities have to manage and to enforce the freight system. Research is needed to share data, to achieve sustainability. All we said before can be done with innovation, research, cooperation, and with the help of technology. Sharing economy, for example, is growing up thanks to the technology. Why not also for logistics? So thank you for this time, Mike.
Okay, so thank you very much, Giuseppe. Thank you very much for a very nice summary. And I think you deserve sort of recognition because coordinating the coordinators can't be the easiest of things. But no, they're obviously a very nice group, so you had no trouble. Okay, let's just close this with a couple of remarks. Actually, the first one I'm going to make is a sort of personal remark. I was at a conference last year, and Sarah Verlinda from Moby, a colleague of Kathy McCarris, was at the conference. And we were just chatting before the conference, and she said, she knows I've worked in this field for a long time, and she said, don't you get disappointed, Mike, when you sort of see some of these things, and it seems like the same thing must be happening, or something isn't changing very much? And I thought about it for a moment, and I thought, well, am I disappointed? And I thought, no, actually, I'm not really disappointed. I'm kind of happy that a lot of the things that we have talked about for some time are starting to change, and that a lot of these things, of course, it takes time, and we should be prepared for that. And that actually the things that we thought were maybe the way to do it have to also change. We can't implement and apply it in quite the way we thought. So I thought, well, actually, I'm not a pessimist, which actually, if you ask my wife, she'll tell you that I'm deeply pessimistic. But anyway, I'm not at all pessimistic. I'm actually an optimist. But what I realize the thing is that I'm a very impatient optimist, actually. So I really am surprised it takes us so long sometimes to make some of this happen. And I think sometimes if you looked at this from another world, let's say, we'd be absolutely amazed that some of this does take quite so long to happen. So we really have to get better at communicating this, I think. And I think it's very good that the panel mentioned the importance of being in the network. And I find it very nice when I come here and I recognize probably half the people, maybe even a little bit more than that. And I feel, comfortable, and it's very relaxing. And then I think, well, hold on a minute. That's only part of this point of this. I should be at conferences where I don't know anybody, or hardly anybody. And the reason that is because we need to bring this information to other actors and other groups of people. And I mentioned this webinar with Alison that took place last week. And one of the good things was that when you look down the list of people who'd signed up, I didn't recognize many of the names of the people. And that showed that we'd got a way of getting to some people who were not the normal suspects, let's put it like that. So I hope that we can continue this discussion. And in relation to that, I want to say that we will host a conference in Gothenburg in October as part of the Volvo Research and Education Foundation networks, bringing all the many different organizations together. And we set ourselves a task of trying to get at least a reasonable proportion of people who never go to an urban freight conference to come to one. We haven't got to that target yet, but we're going to work hard at trying to do that. So if you're interested to come, please let me know, and you're welcome to attend. On a practical question, as I said briefly when we were having the panel, all the presentations and the posters and any other information about the projects will be put on the Polis website and will also be on the website of each of the projects. So that's no problem to find all this information out, and you have all the details of the presentations here today. And really, I can't sort of end without actually making a big thank you to the Polis staff who've been really put a huge amount of effort into organizing this. And, that includes Giacomo Lozzi, Michel Arndt, Francesco Ripa, Alexia Collignon, and Thomas Maury. So well done, and thanks a lot. Okay, so thanks a lot for all your participation. And I think now we can continue, those who wish to continue to discuss and talk about it, it's to go downstairs, and there's an opportunity to carry on a little bit, and maybe there's even a post-it note for those of you who've become addicted to putting post-it note comments. Okay.